And welcome to College Football Spotlight. It's brought to you by AT&T. I'm Jim Basquil. This weekend offers a host of terrific games, including LSU and Georgia from Death Valley in a potential elimination game for the national title. Penn State in search of their first win over Ohio State since joining the Big Ten. And the Buckeyes will have Beanie Wells in the lineup despite the fact that he's banged up. Then there's top-ranked Texas getting number 6 Oklahoma State. The Longhorns have beaten the Cowboys 10 straight times under Mack Brown. That is where we'll start with predictions from Todd McShay and Mil Kiper Jr. All right, a few notes before we get to your email questions. UConn coach Randy Edsall denied reports that he's been contacted by Syracuse regarding their head job, and Joe McKnight's expected to play for USC at Arizona. He'd been out with a toe injury. Now let's get to those emails, and we'll start with those Red Raider fans, and this is from Nick Sherman. Do you think Texas Tech could beat Texas? And that's followed by Linda Kaufman's question. Why doesn't Texas Tech get more national credit? They're 7-0 in the Big 12. Why did Oklahoma State move ahead of them? Well, Texas Tech in their last 3 all-conference games has averaged 46 points a game, so that's certainly impressive. They've given up 4 touchdowns a game on average in those last 3 as well. But the schedule will dictate where Texas Tech ultimately goes. They're number 8 right now. They're at Kansas, 23rd ranked in the country. Then they follow with number 1 Texas at home, followed by Oklahoma State, 6th ranked in the nation, and then at number 4 Oklahoma. That's as tough as it gets. And if they get through that, you could say Texas Tech will be in line for a shot at the national title. Now let's go to the questions that concern Alabama. And this is from Justin from Memphis, Tennessee. I don't really understand what all the hype about Texas being number 1 is about. I've been a Tennessee fan forever, and I still think the Tide would roll over them. And then there's Brian from Knoxville. We touched on his question during the week. Has the media taken note of the fact that Alabama has 10 total second-half points when you combine Tulane, Kentucky, and Ole Miss? Is that number 2 caliber to you? And then Penn State, Texas, and Bama run the table. Who plays who? That question's from Pete from Billings, Montana. We'll start there. If the 3 teams run the table, you have to figure it'll be Texas and Alabama playing for the national title. They play tougher schedules considering the Big 12 and the SEC, the primetime conferences this year. Penn State playing in the Big 10. They can go a long way by beating Ohio State, and certainly the other teams have tough contests the rest of the way. So Penn State is right there when you're talking about a shot at the national title. They'll need one of those teams, though, to have a hiccup. In terms of Justin's question about the Tide rolling over Texas, well, Texas deserves to be there. Number 1, they beat the number 1 team, Oklahoma, and they've since beaten Missouri convincingly. So they deserve to be where they are, and they have a tough conference schedule that they play in. And then the Tide, well, they play at LSU at the back end of the season. I believe it's on November 8th. So if the Tide get and run the table through the SEC, they'll be there. They'll be there to play Texas for the national title, so that'll be answered on the field. And then there's a trio of questions concerning USC. We'll start with Daniel from New Mexico, who's from Georgia, by the way. He says, why is Georgia ranked below USC? I understand they lost to Alabama, but didn't USC lose to Oregon State? That's a good point he makes. And then there's this from Taylor Morgan. Why should USC be pardoned for its loss to unranked Oregon State? I'm all about respecting one-loss teams in the Big 12 or SEC, but the Pac-10 is no better than the Mountain West this year. We had one more from Jay, who's a Buckeye fan, by the way, who doesn't think USC should even be considered for the national title game. He puts credence towards his Buckeyes, who, by the way, lost to USC earlier this year. So let's address the first 2. USC has scored 138 unanswered points, but they've been rolling of late. But the teams ahead of them play in stronger conferences, talking about the Big 12, talking about the SEC, and even the Big 10. So if Texas, Alabama, and Penn State take care of their end of things, USC's not going to have a shot for the national title. But if they have hiccups along the way, the Trojans could slip in having lost earlier in the season. A lot of times it's all about when you lose. So despite the fact that the Pac-10 doesn't measure up to those conferences, it could be timing for USC. But Texas and Alabama, as it stands right now, would be the teams playing for the national title if they run the table in the 2 power conferences this year. Of course, we encourage you every week to hit the email bag here at College Football Spotlight. It's ESPN CF Spotlight at ESPN.com. We'll address those questions every Friday. We appreciate the inquiries throughout the week and hope you enjoy the weekend. Thanks for watching College Football Spotlight, brought to you by AT&T. I'm Jim Basquil.